Thanks for tuning in to another episode number 19 of Seeking Focus.
Welcome to Seeking Focus, a podcast that provides photographers and videographers with a place to critically compare technology, share ideas, and enhance their skills.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going, buddy?
Good. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, I'm good. Did
you have fun this week, or?
Yeah, look, it wasn't overly busy, but I had some good shoots happen, and
Nice.
one of them was the wedding of a movie celebrity, believe it or not.
No, cool. Nice.
Yes.
Australian or American or what?
Australian.
Okay, sweet.
Which,
Nice.
I was actually kind of surprised when I was asked to do it. But yeah, it was good. I can't disclose who it was, just client confidentiality. But I can tell you that the difference between our weddings, like normal people's weddings and famous people's weddings, there really isn't that much difference.
They just probably spend more money on it, right?
Yeah, there was more people there, obviously, but
was like 1,000 people in there? Or?
No, not that bad. But in saying that, I've gone to a few weddings where people have gone a little bit crazy and brought half of their suburb with them. But yeah, no, it was a lot of people, a lot of work as well.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like weddings, just that's why I don't do weddings anymore, man. I just know how much work there is, and then it's just constant, man. Like if I do a wedding, I have to recover for like literally 3 days afterwards. I need to recover. It
is tiring. But the thing is, I as opposed to your average photographer who does weddings, I have a little bit of fun. So I use it as an interactive sort of period where I socialise with everyone and probably it still tires the hell out of me because there's a lot of work involved with it.
Yep.
And generally speaking, I don't actually do too many weddings anymore, but videography weddings, no, I don't touch those. There has been the odd one here and there, which I'll do because it's in an open field or something, so visually it's there's something amazing about it. But for the most part, I don't do videography for weddings, and I generally don't really do too much of the photography for weddings. But there are the odd occasional people who approach me because they just like my style, and and I appreciate it. And there's a few opportunities where I get to meet some special people, so I jump at those. But that's pretty much my week. How was yours?
No, mine was good, man. It's just it got me thinking actually about this episode because having a family, obviously, I took my son to see a doctor just about his acne, and being a teenager, he obviously does not what's supposed to be doing, doesn't clean himself properly, probably, I don't know. It's he's probably going to hear this episode, he's not going to like me very much. But look, what I'm trying to make a point is I took him to a doctor, and after the session with the doctor, probably about half an hour afterwards, I get a phone call to say, hey, we just saw your car, and you do photography and videography. Can you do a bit of photography and videography for us? And I was like, yeah, sure. What do you need done? So they need like a bit of photos and videos about the whole clinic and everything else. So it was great, you know what I mean? So it just brought me to this sort of way of thinking of, hey, let's do an episode on how to run a business like what we are doing and potentially be, well, I think we both are pretty successful at it. It took us a while to get there, and we didn't really have any sort of podcasts or information on how to sort of reach to that sort of stage and get a better understanding. So I thought maybe we bring up some sort of a couple of questions on this episode to be able to show people, hey, what's a good way of going on about running a photography and videography business, and try to obviously encourage everyone to get in there and don't give up after 6 months or a year. You know what I mean? Just keep going with it. So
a successful business as opposed to a failing, burning to the ground sort of business.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. So we've actually been doing this for a number of years. I mean, geez, I can't even remember how many.
I think mine is probably close to 10 now.
Yeah, I've as a business where chasing clients and stuff like that, I've probably been doing it for about 5 years. Yeah. But I've been producing.
I think you're a lot more successful than I am, though, to be honest with you.
That's just because I'm better looking.
Oh, that's true.
I attract the clients here. Hardly. No, but I did a lot of video production, which sold worldwide and stuff, for 15 years prior to. But that was all basically, love of videography, and all the money that we actually raised was basically donated to different charity organisations across Australia. So I don't really consider that a business as such, but we were actually extremely successful. We had a team of I think it was 15 people at one stage. So the management,
all this was for charity though, did you say?
Yeah,
you didn't actually get paid for it?
No, well, what happened was we were filming Central Australian shots, so we would cover our costs to get there, so drive there, so we'd jam 6 people in a car. So we weren't splurging or anything, and we would use the cost of the money we made from selling the DVDs across the world, because we actually had a global distribution network. We would basically cover our costs, so the fuel, any repairs we had to do along the way, and then probably about 95% of that money that we made went straight to a different charity, and we actually allowed community groups to decide what charity that money was going to go to.
Nice. Okay.
So I did that for about 15 years, but I don't consider that a business. I mean, technically, it's probably one of the biggest businesses I've ever been involved in, but it was because it was we didn't make money off it. I don't consider it a business as such.
Yeah, that was four-wheel drive racing, wasn't it?
Four-wheel drive racing.
Mud Rhino.
Mud Rhino. That was the name that I used to run under many moons ago. But you can still track that down. There's a presence in social media, and there's still groups that still run under that title.
So you obviously had a bit of a, I guess, positive feedback and positive attitude towards people that this is still going on, although you're not even not really generally part of it now, right? Or you?
No, look,
you motivated people. That's what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, we taught a lot of people. We upskilled people. We had sponsorship. We were sponsored actually at some stages as well to do things like this. So what we did was appreciated by all the communities that we serviced, all the money that we donated to charity groups. They were, I've still got plaques and thank yous and awards and stuff. And we were very successful because, we had a love for what we did. So that was a huge thing in itself. I mean, if you don't love what you do, you're not going to be very successful.
No, that's exactly right.
If you're just chasing the money, you're never going to
100%.
be happy. And in our case, we weren't chasing any money at all. It just happened that it coincided with what we were doing. Our love for the sport brought money about, and because we weren't chasing the money, we didn't keep it.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people find difficult to comprehend, but we just enjoy what we're doing, and once that group sort of went its separate way, everyone sort of went their own way. A couple of other video production companies started off from that, and one of them was reasonably successful, but I think it's actually closed down now. And I went solo and started doing photography and videography, and look, I won't say I'm the most successful person. I do have limitations on what I can do. I haven't expanded and taken on an army of workers underneath me. For me personally, finding people to work with I find very difficult. In the past I've been burnt, and it's very difficult to find someone who can mimic your style, your behaviour, and why clients employ you in the first place. If I've hired someone who doesn't have the same personality as me, or doesn't believe the same things, or does things differently, and I send them out to a client who's used to me, they're going to be like, well, what the hell's this?
That's right.
And that's why we work well together. We have similar beliefs. We what we do with our style, everything's very similar, and we also mold to each other's styles. So whilst we're the same, we're actually quite very different. And that's why
I shoot with Sony, shoot with Blackmagic.
But I pretend I've got a Sony. I just put with a texter on my Blackmagic. I write Sony.
Now, look, that's probably one of the reasons why I sort of wanted to start this episode, because we've both been doing this for a while now, and what you mentioned to me, you got to love what you do, and I think both of us we do love what we do. And I mean, the very first question that I was sort of thinking about is what makes you run your own business, you know what I mean? And if the money is the driving component behind running your own business, that's great, but then how long are you going to survive before you start hating what you do? You know what I mean? And I think with photography and videography is that's a very important thing, because we both love what we are doing, and though sometimes the money might not be there, as long as we have enough money to be able to put food on the table, we'll still potentially do it, and and then try to continue on with enjoying the job and talking to people and other things as well. You know what I mean? So what makes you, so if I ask you the question, what makes you run your own business? You know what I mean? Is it just for the money, or is it for love? Or, I mean, you've done sort of fair bit of, charity work as well. So, what do you think about that? I don't know if it's a difficult question or...
It's not a difficult question. I mean, what started me off in the industry was a love for photography and videography. I've always loved, even since the age of 8, I've had my own cameras, and I think by the age of 11 I had my own darkroom, so I was producing photos back then. So I've always had a particular like for it. I've really enjoyed it, capturing the moment. And I think basically when I was doing the four-wheel driving stuff, it was basically just a passion. I was also racing as well. And when I'd damaged my vehicle and I couldn't race anymore and it was in repairs, I wanted to go to these events. And instead of standing there looking at the wall, I felt that... Photo. Yeah, take photos or to do videos. And then the drones came out, and then we started doing POV videos. And, we ended up getting a whole bunch of cameras from New York police cameras, that the little cameras that they used to have on their
cameras,
shop. Yeah, the body cameras. They were called Elmos back in the day.
Wow, okay.
And this was before GoPros and stuff. So we were like at the forefront of it, and we were just like trying to figure out new
and that's
ways.
the thing about photography and videography, isn't it? They're like just constant evolving. I mean, the technology is getting better and better. Back then, never heard of GoPros probably. But now the GoPros are standard sort of way of life. But
I've actually cameras out there which were better than those, but that's another story in itself. But so what ended up happening was, whilst I was doing that passion project, and it was great, but I wasn't really making any money off it. So I had a 9-to-5 job. I worked in an office, and I worked in the same place for many, many years, and I loved what I did. But it got to the point after, I think, working there for about 10 years, that I started pulling my hair out, and I wasn't satisfied. I didn't feel like I was achieving anything, and we had just had young kids. My wife wanted to go back to work. I was like, well, if I'm not happy where I am, why am I here? So I took some time off just to become a stay-at-home dad. My problem, of course, is that I go a little bit crazy if I don't have something to do. I need something to constantly
just
be doing.
Like
me. A friend of mine asked me, would you do some photography for me? And I was like, yeah, sure, no worries. And ended up getting paid for the job. And I was like, well, why am I being paid? And they're like, well, because if I'm not paying you, I'd have been paying someone else. And it's only dawned on me that I had all these skills, which I'd never used. And I thought, well, I can still work my own hours and make money, keep myself busy, do something that I actually enjoy, and take care of the kids.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's how the business developed for me. And initially it was only meant to be a couple of jobs here and there, but I found that I was really enjoying it. I was meeting new people all the time. There was this social aspect to it, and I'm not a particularly social person, but it was really great meeting new people, learning things, developing partnerships. Like we started working together over certain periods, and it still gave me flexibility to take care of my family duties. And it was a no-brainer. So for me, that's how I got into it, and it just started developing more and more. And I think my love for the project and the passion for photography and videography could be felt by the client. And I always tried my best to make sure that what I was providing them wasn't just good enough, it was the best that I could do. I always challenged myself, and the clients picked up on this, and soon it became word of mouth. He's really good, he'll take care of you. They passed it on to someone else,
and exactly the same thing with me. I mean, it's you're talking about having a family and trying to work your own hours and still provide and everything else. And I was exactly in the same boat. I had a IT 9-to-5 job, and I really I got to a point where I just did not like my boss, biggest prick ever, and my wife saw that. So at the end of the day, come home stressed to the max, and the wife was like, well, how about you look after the kids and I'll go back to work and I'll focus on the career and you focus on the family. And we did that for close to 14 years, and then look, it's the passion I think that I've got as well, photography, that sort of I can actually make a living out of it now, which is a really good thing, and being busy and everything else, and it's sort of getting to a point now where you kind of go, oh wow, I'm actually kind of good with it. You know what I mean? It's sort of getting that. So
it sort of catches you off guard. Like you're doing it and you're enjoying it and you're becoming better and better at it.
Yeah.
And people are appreciating you. And then one day it dawns on you that, hell, I'm making a hell of a lot of money. I'm making more money doing this than I did when I was working full time. You know,
I mean, there's a lot of work on it. I mean, people like listening to us potentially will think, oh shit, I can make a lot of money. You know what I mean, by doing what I enjoy as well.
But it's a lot of work.
But it's a lot of work. You know what I mean? There's a number of times where, you know, I've got editing to do and I'm up till 2-3 o'clock in the morning, you know what I mean? Yeah. And editing and doing whatever I need to do, and then still getting up in the morning to take the kids to school. Yeah. You know what I mean? And still be able to function during the day because you've got another client coming in or whatever else. But I guess, you know, the next point is what I'm trying to make is networking as well. You know what I mean? It's what do you think about networking for a business? Because to me, the networking for the business is probably one of the biggest things. I mean, I've known businesses, and we had, you know, Daniel from Visual Production Agency in the previous episodes talking about how much money they're spending on, obviously, Google ads and Facebook ads and other things. And I mean, potentially both me and you did not spend, I don't know about you, but I did not spend a cent on any advertising. You know what I mean?
I actually did initially spend some money when I was starting off, thinking, oh, you know, I've got to jump on board here. And I think I spent like $15 on Facebook.
Okay, that's a big bucks.
It did not eventuate to anything for some bizarre reason, but I actually did spend $15 and I saw no return on it. And I thought, well, if I can't get a return on my $15, well, why should I spend more? And I've never done that. But it comes down to, you know, networking is look, for most people, it's very, very important. For me, don't get me wrong, I still do network. I'm not, though a lot of people think I'm this extrovert, it's a persona that I put on. I'm actually a very quiet, insecure sort of person.
Right.
But people expect you to be lively. They expect you to be in control. They want you to speak up. If you sit in the corner and don't say anything, you're not going to work in this industry for very long.
That's right.
With the networking, I never was very big on networking. If I was trying to achieve, you know, big things and I wanted to develop my business further than just a one-man band, networking would definitely be the way to go. I've been very reserved when it comes to networking, and for me it's work because I'm a solo act. I work for myself. I'm a one-man band, so, you know, I don't have other people. I don't want to expand. What I'm doing is sufficient, and it's working really well. So I've never really been a networking sort of person.
For me networking is a big thing, you know what I mean? And my wife always tells me you're an introvert, yet when she sees me out there, I'm a very extrovert. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to be.
Yeah. And I mean, networking for me is quite a big thing. And I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why we started this podcast, because I pissed in your ear to say, hey, let's do this podcast because we can get other people on the show and everything else. And I'm kind of in a way thinking is, you know, I've networked with a lot of other videographers in Melbourne, you know what I mean? And the guys are fantastic, you know what I mean? And I'm just sort of meeting all these new people, marketing agencies and other things, you know. And to me, networking and just letting people know what you do and how you do, like, I have not spent literally $2 on the advertising anyway, you know what I mean? Yet, you know, I'm using social media to my advantage. As much as I hate it, you have to post, like, the business that we're in, you have to be on social media. You know what I mean? And I've known a number of photographers that they just don't want to post on social media, on Facebooks and Instagrams and whatever else. But you know what? That's unfortunately, that's how it is. That's the nature of the beast.
And I have to say, I absolutely hate social media, and the fast that it's made, it's it brings out the worst in people, I think. You know, and it sort of encourages people not to use their brain. But you are right. It is unfortunately one of those things that, you know, you need to do. And I don't do a lot of social media work. I try and avoid it as much as I can. Yep. That's the style that I've got. For me, I do a lot of, pardon me, I'm losing my voice. I do a lot of corporate things. So social media and corporate really don't mix too well.
Yeah, but then you still got to be able to post something. So, you know, like when I post something on Instagram, I use hashtags, you know what I mean? Corporate shoot. You know, so if a local person, or Melbourne corporate shoot, you know what I mean? So then local person can click on the tag, for instance, and then my post will potentially be up there, you know what I mean? And they'll see it. And then they're going to flick through all the other posts that I've done, and they go, hey, this guy is actually looking quite legit. Let's get him in to do this photo shoot. I mean,
See, with me, I don't rely on that sort of thing. I rely on feedback from clients. So I've got in excess of 300 reviews, all 5 stars, in everything that I've done. So if someone's looking for a corporate sort of work, I mean, don't get me wrong, I do other stuff as well, but corporate is my fundamental sort of bread and butter. They will look at the review, and it's like, it's glowing, and there's not a single negative review there.
It's because you're flexible as well, though. Right. So,
but if they went on Instagram and saw a video of someone running around in a bikini doing, stupid things, are they going to go, oh, yeah, hell, we want him? No, they're not, because it's not the audience that I'm going for.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So it depends on the person and what they're trying to achieve. And for me, in that instance, it doesn't work. And this is an example of, not one size fits all. It depends on what you're trying to achieve, and you got to do some market research for your audience, and and how to promote yourself. Because if you want to be a big production company that does social media and stuff like that, you need to be on social media. If you're trying to do corporate stuff and you're posting on social media, it's like, what's it really going to achieve? So you're investing all this time in doing that type of stuff, and it's not paying off. That's my perception. I'm sure
look, I agree with you, but I also disagree with you as well, because having that presence, and I've got a hell of a lot of work out of that, because like I said, I use proper hashtags. I tag my clients. Whoever follows that client, they repost that tag as well. So it's just the word keeps on spreading, So like recently I've shot, and the thing is, what I'm trying to say is you got to adapt to the TikTok thing. It's a huge thing. And I recently shot a fairly big video, and it was only like a 4-hour shoot, but they wanted, I think, 6 or 7. I can't remember now, whatever it was. But they TikTok reels. And I didn't particularly actually want to do it, but then I turn around and I go, yes, I'll do it for X amount of money, and I gave them a ridiculous number, and they still did it. Because they saw on social media what's capable and what they need to do. So I'm kind of shooting and adapting to that is a big thing. It's it's just constant. You got to be in it to win it, sort of thing. So I understand what you're saying, but it's also agree and disagree in a sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. And this is an example of what works for one person doesn't work for another, and this is how we create our own individual styles. Like, I've been asked to do stuff on TikTok. I've just turned it down automatically. I have no interest. I don't even have a TikTok account. I've never even seen.
Come on, mate. I've got a TikTok account.
I'm sorry.
I don't post on it, but I still got it, baby.
Next you're going to tell me you got a Twitter account.
No, I don't have that.
But the thing is, like, I just social media like TikTok and stuff like that for me is the pits. And this is probably going to come back to bite me on the ass. But we spoke a while ago about the trend of in TikTok, someone suggested that you should get a rock and scratch all your lenses up to get these amazing. I mean, that's just like. This is the type of people you're attracting through TikTok, and that's for me. I just sort of go, I don't want any involvement in that.
Saying that though, some of those corporate clients, and I understand they don't want to be on TikToks and whatever, or they potentially, but like the client that I shot, there was a restaurant, and they want those Instagram reels, they want those TikTok reels, So if they that's one of the reasons why I sort of gave them. Ridiculous amount of money that they had to give me for that, and they still paid it. So it's kind of going, what's going on?
But each to their own.
That's exactly right. So spot on, man. I guess the next sort of we talked about sort of the TikToks and everything else. So I'm guessing you probably have a different viewpoint than I would potentially, but. Would you do a job for free for exposure? And it's one of those things. Exactly right. So where you kind of go, well, can I eat air for and still survive for for a month or two without sort of getting paid to put food on the table? So look, in the past when I started off, I did a fair bit of free work. Saying that though, free probably not the best word. But I still charge them bare minimum, So just to cover my fuel costs, just to cover my, and if I can use that footage to promote myself and get more clients, then I did that. You know what I mean? My wife said a number of times to me, she said to me, "You're much better than this. Why are you doing this for free? Why are you doing this for nothing, virtually?" And I said to her, because I need to build up my portfolio. I need to be able to do this to be able to get these bigger jobs. And I think, look, it took a while, but I'm sort of there now, you know what I mean? Where I can turn around and charge on top dollar for something that in the past I probably wouldn't have, you know what I mean? What do you feel about that?
I can tell you outright, I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I've been approached heaps, this is going to be great exposure for you. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. But
they also talk shit as well.
They do. Everyone, you shoot my 21st birthday, it's going to be great exposure for you. Exposure for what? How's this going to benefit me,
Yeah.
It's like having a car dealership coming up to you and saying, "I'll shoot our videos. It's going to be great exposure for you." Well, what exposure am I going to get? Am I going to get a free car out of this? That's great exposure for me, So when people say to me, "It's going to be great exposure," I just look at them and just say, "Please go away." I don't mind helping people out. I don't mind. I go out of my way to help people out. But this exposure stuff is crap. Like back in the day when I used to race cars, everyone would say, they'd walk up to sponsors and go, "Look, we want to take your products and we want to put them on our car and we're going to give you great exposure. We're going to have your name on the side of the car and everyone's going to know it's your product." The reality is, as soon as you hit the racetrack, you hit the first mud hole, that logo's gone. It's covered in mud. You don't see anything. What exposure are they getting out of that? They're not getting anything out of it. And when someone says to me, "I'm going to get great exposure out of it," I'm like, "Yeah, well, find someone else." I know it's very closed-minded, and I'm probably a dinosaur in the way I approach these things. But for me, exposure is not going to put food on the table. I don't expect to have lobster on the table, but I do expect to have something like 2-minute noodles as a minimum. And telling me I'm going to have a glass of hot air sitting on the table for my family to eat, it just doesn't work. In saying that, I do donate a lot. I'm doing a lot of lip smacking in the last few days, but my dog does that. I think I picked it up from him. So for me, I do a lot of free work. But it's not about exposure. It's about contributing to something bigger than yourself. I do a lot of charity work. I've worked for Starlight Foundation and a number of community groups, and I do a lot of free work for them because I believe in what they do, and I feel that I'm contributing to the greater good by doing that. It's not about exposure. I don't ask for my name to be printed up, and that's when I do three things. It's got nothing to do with exposure for me. I think that is the biggest cop-out I've ever seen. Once again, that is me. I don't believe in it.
I agree. And I mean, look, I've done things in the past when I initially sort of started off with, like I said, just to sort of have it in my portfolio. But I've also done, I've been approached by one of the guys that I used to shoot with. He goes, "I want to do the documentary on this person, and he helps other males out." And I was like, "Mate, don't even pay me for fuel. I'll be there, you know what I mean, with my camera and my gear and whatever else, you know what I mean?"
But I know what you're referring to because I've actually seen that production. So there's a number of factors there. So one of them was it was testing you out and developing your style. So it was something that was slightly different to what you'd done before, and it was developing you. So that was not exposure. That was about you becoming better. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it was also an opportunity to develop and contribute to something bigger than yourself as well. So what you were referring to is fantastic. Yeah. And I remember that one. It's actually some really great work there, and it really tested you. I think it took you to another level in your production. Yeah. But in saying that, and sorry, I'm just sort of changing the subject a little bit. When you're contributing to the greater good, there are limitations, and there's been times where in past I've actually done some work, community work, or I've contributed my time to a project which I believed in, but in the process got screwed over. Yeah, like for example,
we all have done it though. That's the thing, isn't it? We all copped it.
Yeah, so I mean, I was helping out a charity organisation, and I said to him, "Look, not a problem. I'll spend 6 hours there. I'll help this. I'll do that, and all I ask for is that I can park my car on your property and not have to pay for parking." Yeah. And they're like, yeah, no worries, And of course, on the day it came out that I had to park and I had to pay for parking, and I ended up getting this astronomical fee for parking. And I was just like, God, that's a lot of money. Oh, don't worry, we'll cover it. They never did. And that sort of thing, well, you know, like I contributed my time, my expertise, my editing, my this, that and the other. And all I had asked was that I could park my car without being charged for it. And it was their organisation's parking fees. So there was no reason why they couldn't say, look, you know, don't worry about the fees. But I still got charged. And that put me off.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had exactly the same situation. I mean, where, you know, I was out there doing a video for, 6-7 hours. And there was a close to my heart organisation as well, and I've said to them, I said, look, you know, that's fine if you can just pay for the music, because I have a subscription to a website that I pay for royalty free music. And I said to them, I said, just pay for that, and basically I'll be happy with that, because I believe in the organisation as well. And then I give them the invoice. It was like $200-300 or whatever else, because the whole video was like 16 minutes. So I used a number of different tracks, and they never paid it. You know, the number of emails that I've sent through, and I mean that amount wasn't even, you know, to a point where you take them to a VCAT or whatever else. You know what I mean?
And you don't want to take a charity organisation to a VCAT. You know, I had to pay for parking. It's not there. It's not, you sort of just go, you know what? I've learnt a lesson here, and I won't go over it.
And those lessons come with time, unfortunately. You know what I mean? You have to get shafted virtually once, and then you'll learn from that experience, and you're going to tell them to get the stuff next time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Simple as that. But
yeah, it's one of those things. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask is, with your business, I'm sole. I work purely by myself. I sometimes utilise your services as part of mine, but do you have staff?
No. It's a very hard thing, and I mean, look, whoever's listening to us for long term, they know that I have a part-time job, and to be honest with you, looking at bigger businesses, the worst problem about running a business is people. You know what I mean? People calling sick, people call, you know, they don't agree on this, on that, or whatever else. So it's a conflict of interests and other things as well. So that's probably one of the reasons why I wanted to keep everything in-house slowly by myself. And like I said, you know, I've used yourself in a number of shoots as well. But, you know, no, I'll probably, look, at this stage, and I don't have any plans for the future, by getting other people in. I mean, it'd probably be helpful, definitely helpful, by, you know, doing like a pre-cut of a shoot and just get rid of all the crap that, you know, your shot that you don't need. But I just feel like it's just going to be a lot more headache than it's worth, to be honest with you.
And look, when I initially started off and I started my business, I was thinking like, I'm gonna be huge. I'm gonna be bigger than Ben Hur. And I went off and I started looking for people to work with me. And, you know, you'd put feelers out there and you'd say, you know, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. And I went for a shoot. I had to bring in 6 people for a shoot. It was huge, massive. It was actually for McDonald's, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a huge shoot. And there was thousands of people there, and one person by themselves just couldn't do it. So I brought in a whole bunch of people, and I brought in a couple of people I've never used before. And I said to them, "This is what we're doing. This is the brief. This is what I expect from you. Are you okay with it? Yeah. You're representing me. Yeah. Not a problem." And we went off and we did the shoot. And I was supervising and also working. So when I wasn't taking shots, I'd walk around and make sure everything was okay. Do you need a drink? Do you need a break? Do you need this? Do you need that? And in itself, it was actually quite difficult to manage people whilst also trying to do your own shoot. But in the distance, I see one of the guys that I'd never met before, and he's working for me. He's working the room, and I'm like, cool. But he's spending a lot of time.
It was
talking
like a function,
to
was it?
Yeah, huge
Yeah,
function. And he doesn't look like he's taking photos, but he's talking to a lot of people. I'm thinking, okay, I'm not paying you to talk to people. I'm paying you to take photos. So I got closer, and I realised what he was doing. He actually wasn't taking photos. He was promoting himself and his business. He was handing out business cards. And that was the first time that I actually sort of went, whoa, and I went up to him and I said, get out. I don't need this crap. And after that, I sort of didn't want to do any big jobs like that anymore, because having someone there that you're supposedly is working for you and they're actually promoting themselves. it's like, it's just ridiculous, and that left a scar on me. So I sort of haven't really brought a lot of people in past. I mean, there's occasionally people that I trust that I bring in, but for the most part, I try and do things individually.
No, 100%, man.
Yeah.
And it's similar. Yeah, I had obviously a number of different similar situations as well, but probably not to that extent. But yeah, it's hard working with people, man. Simple as that. And like styles are different and everything else. And the whole vision and value of the whole process is obviously maybe different than yours, and that's what makes the whole hard, like business wise. It just makes it hard to be able to expand and just move on further on number of people. I mean, Daniel from Visual, I'm sorry for referring back to him because he's probably one of the bigger ones.
His ears are burning.
Yeah, but he's probably one of the bigger production kind of agencies that we sort of had a chat with in the past, and he employs a number of different people, but in every single month he's got these overheads that he has to pay for, you know what I mean? And if he doesn't have a specific number of jobs to be able to make money to pay these people, he'll be losing a lot of hair, you know what I mean?
He would, yeah.
It's a constant, unless you have a number of set projects that every single month it will happen, it's okay, I guess, you know what I mean? But then what happens if you lose one of those projects? And I understand you got to take risks. I understand that you got to do a number of different things.
That's if you want to expand and become huge. Yeah, you've got to take risks. That's the only way you're going to do that.
Right.
But for an individual who's trying to basically just do his own thing, it's probably not necessary.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the subject of people working for you, have you ever had anyone, get in contact with you and say, look, I want to be a trainee, or I'll work for you and I'll do all this work for free?
Yeah.
It just reminds me of, you get great exposure. I'll do all this work for free just so, they can get a foot in the door. How do you react to that? First of all, have you ever had that happen to you? And how did you react?
I did. And I had a uni student sort of helping me out. And look, I've still paid her. It wasn't a huge amount of money, obviously, but she was very happy with it. And, it worked quite well. Unfortunately, she moved on to another job and this and that, so it kind of worked out okay. But it's kind of hard because you almost have to look over that person's shoulder to make sure that that person's not doing anything silly. You know what I mean? From a safety perspective, from a talking perspective, I don't know. It's just constant, like, it's something in the back of your head, and then you ask them to sort of, start packing up a tripod or whatever else. They might not be doing it the right way, and if they hurt themselves, it's always in the back of that head of yours. You know what I mean? So I try to minimize it. Yes, I have people ask me to help, to go on to the shoots or whatever else, but I try to minimize it to bare minimum, you know what I mean? And I mean, there's a number of shoots that I had to do with multiple people, and I am willing to spend now more money to say, all right, I know, say Evan charges, X amount of money per hour, I'll get him and I'll budget for that, you know what I mean? So if that client still wants me, then I'm going to say, all right, this is going to take, this is going to be extra $1,000 for a, I don't know, 5-6 hour shot, because I've got to pay my guys for that, you know what I mean? And I just know the way you work, for instance, I know I'll be able to trust you fully, where I can just leave you alone and do whatever I asked you to do, you know what I mean? Like, the shoot that we did a couple of months ago where, you were taking care of the sound and I was just looking at the camera, and that's it, you know what I mean? You mic the person up, you did whatever I needed to do. I don't need to know. I don't need to double check on anything. I just know your shit. You know what I mean? Where, that person is still learning, or the trainee or whatever else still learning, and I've got to show them. So that takes more time of my time, and I've got to show them what to do. Where as bad as it sounds, I spend, hours and hours and hours and days of learning this shit, yet I'm going to just pass this information to that person in a minute. You know what I mean? So I try to avoid it as much as possible, man. Yourself?
Believe it or not, I get messages probably once a week or once a fortnight from people wanting to work for me. And I'm a one-man band, so I don't really have enough work. But occasionally I sort of think, okay, fair enough. Let's talk to this person, and I'm like, so what are you offering? And they're like, I'll do it for free, and I'm like, no, that's not going to work for me. I don't expect anyone to work for free. I expect you to receive a wage for what you're doing, a fair amount of money for what you do. I'm not going to make you rich if you work for me, but at the end of the day, I don't think you should be doing it for free. And I tell them that outright. I think it's the wrong way to approach things. And look, I can understand you want to put a foot in the door, so I'll do it for free, but people will take you for a ride. And there's other agencies out there and stuff will go, yeah, no worries, come and work for us for 3 months, and then we'll never speak to you again. And they chew up people in front of me. I don't believe in that. I believe in, a fair wage for the amount of work that they do. And the thing is, though, some of these people, they say to them, so what do you want to do? And they're like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And you're like, okay. So you sort of set some boundaries and say, if you're going to work for me, you need to do this. And it's interesting to see that a lot of these people who approach you, automatically when you say to them, you're not going to come out with me on your first day and shoot a wedding, and you're not going to be the main photographer. And they get really shitty, and that's it. They don't want to talk to you anymore. And you're just like, well, okay, that's weirded this person out. So I think a lot of people have unrealistic expectations. They think they're going to come along to every single shoot. I'm not going to take someone I don't know with me to an important client shoot or a wedding or something like that. And hope to God that they don't actually destroy things or say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. It's just ridiculous. And it's really interesting that a lot of these people who approach you, when you actually start sort of trying to put boundaries out and saying, okay, you're going to have to do this and you need to do this and you need to show me this, they just vanish. And
yeah, look, I've said it in the other episodes as well, where a lot of people think that, we can do this overnight, it doesn't work like that, you know what I mean? It took us, 10 plus years to be able to get to where we are potentially, and a shitload of hours learning and degrees and whatever else, and knowing how to talk to people to be able to achieve what we are achieving, and look, we're potentially still a small player here, right? But saying that though, you need to know how to speak to a client. You can't just.
It's professionalism. That's
correct.
the word. It's professionalism. Because I find that if a person can't talk to me and take feedback from a person who's actually trying to be understanding and supportive, because I'm trying to be, you're not going to work with me for free. You're going to get paid. I need you to do this. How are they going to take direction from a client who's doesn't know what the hell they're talking about,
that's right.
Or a client who's yelling at them? It's just not going to happen. So I think they sometimes come out with unrealistic expectations. On the subject of developing your business and stuff, one of my favorites, and this happens, I kid you not, it must be like 2 to 3 times a day. It does not stop. You get a phone call from a number. It's a mobile number nowadays. It's a mobile number, not a landline, not an international number. It's a mobile number. And you say hi, and they go, "Oh, hi, Evan." They call you by name, and you're like,
"Yeah, that's me. What do you want?"
You're like, "Hey, how's it going?" And they might say their name's Steve. Yeah, how's it going, Steve? You're thinking, is this a client? Is it a client? And they go into the spiel of, how would you like to be number 1 on Google search engine? And it's just like, please go away. Go away. So they've obviously been going around to all the websites, and they're just looking up people's contact name, their phone number, and they're approaching you as though they're your friend. Do you think there's any benefit? I've automatically just said no to people or hung up on them.
No, I just do it.
Do you think that these people calling you and putting you on the front page of Google, first of all, do you think it's legitimate? And second of all, do you think there'd be any benefit in it?
Yeah, no, number one, I don't think it's legitimate at all. I know a number of different clients that I shoot for, they spend a hell of a lot of money to be able to to be able to rank literally 2 or 3 on the Google, you know what I mean? And it's an ongoing thing as well. These people, I don't know what they're trying to do.
They want you to put a deposit down of like $500, and then they'll do the work, and once they've done the work, they'll get the rest of the money from you. But the reality is, after you put the $500 down, you just never hear from them again. Right. So be mindful, people, if you do get that phone call from the SEO.
I don't believe in all that sort of stuff. I mean, like, it's hard work, unfortunately, still has to happen, I mean, to be able to rank, to be able to get those clients, and obviously, and not just, but visually, you need to show people what you can do, you know what I mean? So, yeah. I guess the next one I was just thinking about was like this on-set apparel, you know what I mean? So so if I say, Evan, we've got to shoot a wedding tomorrow, what would you wear? Like, would you wear your hat and obviously, your Pixel Life, t-shirt or whatever else, and then jeans, or would you sort of, and then vice versa, go into a corporate kind of shoot, you know what I mean? So
no, I just wear thongs all the time, thongs and board shorts. Yeah.
So the flip flops for whoever's listening in the US.
Yeah, and just the G-string. It's always a good image to
the mankini.
The mankini at a corporate event. I actually have a number of different uniforms that I wear. So, if you're doing a corporate event or a formal event, I have, black shirt, black pants, logos embedded, very corporate looking, very professional, and black is always the colour that I go for, because
it's a photography colour, isn't it?
Yeah,
black.
You don't want to walk around hot pink because you don't blend in, you don't hide in the shadows, you show up in reflection, so it's a bad colour. If I'm going to something a little bit more casual and laid back, denim jeans black, once again, I have the t-shirts which the logos embedded into them as well, baseball caps, all that paraphernalia. So depending on the audience, I adapt, but I have a vast collection of different outfits. I don't have the 3-piece business suit with my logo on it. I don't think I'll ever go there, but it's possible one day.
No, I'm pretty much the same. Yeah, like it's like I said, I don't really do much weddings anymore. For that matter, I don't do any weddings anymore. But like still wearing a polo top, corporate sort of look. Black obviously still, and potentially black slacks, not slacks, but like chinos.
Yes.
Chinos.
They're durable, so when you're rolling across on the ground and they don't tear open.
So like it's nice, obviously shoes. So something that you can blend in, yet you still obviously are professional enough to be able to see and show the client that, hey, I'm not a slacker with a torn jeans or whatever else.
I've actually gone to a wedding and someone showed up with torn up jeans. We're not talking a small hole, we're talking like the shredded jeans that look like a piano accordion, and they were wearing like runners, like these big
And you know what, people don't care. Like, I don't know, to me is,
I can't do that.
Yeah, like I went to a wedding as well a while back too, and I wasn't shooting it by all means, and I had no idea who was shooting it, but there was 3 videographers, and one of the videographers turned up in his tracksuit pants.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? What are you thinking, mate?
Were they black?
What do you mean?
Were the tracksuit pants
No,
black?
they were grey.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And they had like they were like sweatpants virtually. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, what are you trying to do, man? You're like, you're giving every videographer a bad name here. You know what I mean? That's just the way I look at it. You know what I mean? So I just looked at him and I was like, seriously? You know what I mean? It's just unprofessional, number one, and number two, you look like a bloody homeless person virtually. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, I've seen some photographers who one of them had a Motorhead top on. Just in case no one knows what Motorhead is, it's from the 80s, 90s. It was a rock band, heavy metal rock band. Like it was a skull, chains and stuff. And this was at a very high level sort of gig, and you just sort of look at this person and you think, yeah, okay, so you're not going to last in this industry for very long. I mean, don't get me wrong, his skills were fantastic, but unfortunately you don't leave that lasting impression where your client goes, hey, that's the man for me for the next job. You'd be like, what the hell is he thinking?
The thing is though, like when you're shooting a wedding or whatever else, it's all word of mouth for the next wedding, right? But if we're doing a corporate work, then that client most likely will get you again and again. You know what I mean? And I mean, I've shot a couple of things for that client, the builder thing, client, whatever it was. And you had that client for months and years, actually.
Years, yeah.
Yeah, so
they just keep coming back.
They keep on coming back. And you know what? If you look like crap, therefore, you know, like you say going to a
it's
corporate...
presentation.
Yeah, that's right.
It's presentation. It's like when you buy a gift, you get the gift and it's nicely wrapped and stuff. You know, if you give a gift to someone in a torn up plastic bag with McDonald's wrapper on the outside or something, you know,
Yeah, that's right.
they're going to look at it and regardless of what's inside, they're going to be, this is crap.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, and that's a really important part. But on the subject of logos and embroidery and stuff like that, do you use business cards?
No. Well, I do have some, but I never use them.
I live with business cards, but once again, different audience. I think with what we do, corporate stuff, always business cards. And it was funny actually because I was at a recent event. Someone asked me for my business card, and someone turned around and said, "Oh, you guys still use business cards? You're such dinosaurs." It's like, well, as opposed to what?
Yeah.
Am I meant to, you know, tattoo you with my logo or something?
Funny you should say that because I know a couple of guys that I've drone with. He's actually printed a QR code on the back of his phone, and he's promoting himself that way. So whoever he's talking to, he just turns his phone. He goes, "Yeah, scan my QR code, and that will take you to my YouTube channel or my website or whatever else."
But how do you keep a copy of that on your phone for future reference? Was once they go to another page, bang, it's gone. So it's trendy, and it's
yeah. But if they're pointing you, if you point them to a YouTube channel, they can just subscribe, and then therefore you got an extra subscriber.
Yeah, but that's if they remember to subscribe. They might go, "Oh yeah, I'll bookmark this when I get home." And then
but that's exactly the same thing with business cards, though. I mean, what makes you think he doesn't put that business card in the bin after he leaves that function?
Business card. No one puts my business card looks good.
Yeah, that's right.
Actually, and it was funny. I got a number of business cards, and they're glossy and embossed, and they look fantastic. And then I thought I'd change them up a little bit, you know. And I got these new ones, and they look like coasters for beers at a pub.
Oh, right.
And I just looked at them and I went,
not a good idea.
Well, they're really great at the pub, you know, because they put their drinks on them. So make sure you see the product before you buy it. Don't do it like I did and then have to throw a whole bunch of them out. But I find that, you know, business cards work for me. But once again, different audiences and so on. As we discussed earlier on in the show, and you were telling us about how that client reached out to you after you'd gone to see a doctor, they saw your stickers on your car, and that's why they contacted you, because you had you had Marty's mobile photography business on the back of your car, a big huge plaque
plastered all over it.
Yeah.
Call me now.
Yeah, 555. And that works for you. So you know you've done that.
Well, you know, like. I don't actually have I keep on going back to Daniel for some reason for visual production, but
his ears again.
If you look at his car, I don't know if you've ever seen his car, but his car has actually got full, like we're talking about massive stickers, visual production agency, and every time he drives on the freeway or whatever else, it stands out, which is great. Don't get me wrong. My one is just small writing on the back windscreen. Window.
I'm sorry, it's not small writing. It's quite large. Look, it's not ginormous.
No, it's not ginormous. But
you can see it from another car.
Correct. You can see it. If you are behind me, you will see me. Yeah. And it only says video and corporate productions. You know what I mean? Which is sorry, not video corporate. I can't remember what I say now.
I actually was just downstairs and I with white text I wrote and weddings.
No, don't do that. I can rub that out. But look, you know, you don't have to spend a lot of money on massive, you know, stickers on the car and everything else. You know, you can probably just pop a small sticker on, and that will entice people. I mean, I've had this in the past when I used to have a 4-wheel drive. I had a lot more stickers on, and I did have, you know, 1 to 2 clients ring me and they go, "Hey, I just saw your car, can you do this production for me?" You know what I mean? So it works, you know what I mean? It does work. I know you don't use any of the stickers on your cars or anything like that.
I actually recently put something on my car.
You did?
Because I for a very long time I've had nothing on my car, but I recently invested in this little yellow diamond plastic plaque, and it hangs off the back window with a little suction cup, and it says "photographer on board."
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so a little picture of a
Not the-
baby.
A baby photographer.
Okay. Photographer, not a baby. I actually have nothing on my car, and there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, I feel that if I park my car outside my house and it has the word photographer, videographer, it's almost an advertisement for, hey, this guy's got cameras inside his house. All right, and I don't know about you, but I live in an area where you don't want to do that. Because you're liable to wake up in the morning and the whole house will be emptied while you're sleeping. The other reason is because it's a huge advertisement which basically says this is the person who owns this car is this person or this business. So if you are driving a car and you accidentally do something wrong, it can
get you.
Adverse impacts.
That's right.
In the call me now number is on the bottom. So I own a Subaru. So automatically I'm labelled as a hoon because I've got a Subaru, mate.
Fully sick.
Yeah, I drive like a normal human being, but I own a Subaru. So people on the road might sort of see that sort of thing. And then second of all, if anyone borrows my car, for example, my wife, who is a leadfoot and she thinks she's Colin McRae reincarnated, she's out there driving like a maniac with my logo on it, cutting people off, and I hope she's never listening to this because I'm going to get my but if she does something wrong while she's driving my car, it automatically reflects on me.
That's right.
So I've been hesitant. I mean, there are huge benefits to doing it, don't get me wrong, but it can also be negative. Like how many times have you been driving on the road and someone cuts you off and you're like, you prick, and you see 1-800 how's my driving, and you're on the phone to them, you're a bastard. Have you ever done that? No, but I've been cut off by people who are complete imbeciles, and the first thing I do is I see that number and I ring up the business and say, your driver who's driving this particular vehicle is a complete dipshit, and I'll give feedback. So yeah, so it's pros and cons.
No, I get you. No, I totally understand. And I mean, I drive a Volvo, so I drive a nicely. So
you need to get a Subaru, mate. Fully sick.
Fully crazy sick.
Yeah, with the blow off.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, we're coming up to
a very long episode, which was actually meant to be like 15 minutes.
It has, hasn't it? Like it just keeps on going. Like, I don't know, man. For some reason, when we get together, we just blab on about crap, and it just makes sense to us. But I'm not so sure if it makes sense to everybody else.
I think everyone else has fallen asleep at this stage.
I hope not.
They actually use the podcast as a sleeping apparatus to help them sleep at night when they're suffering from it. So,
Hey, final thing. Obviously, we've been doing this for a while now. How do you do your invoicing? Because, I mean, do you spend a bit of money on like Xero and QuickBooks and whatever else? Or do you just go, hey, manual crap, and then just, and simple as that, I mean, it doesn't have any benefits of going through. Do you know much about it?
Yeah, look, a little bit I do. I started off doing manual invoices because I was super cool and I could make my invoices, and they were pretty cool. With pictures and stuff. And in the start, when you first start off, you're probably doing like one invoice a month and you're celebrating because you've got one invoice,
Yeah.
But as time progresses and you start pumping them out, it gets to the point where you need to have a template there, which is actually really great, so you can quickly adapt it, or you need to move into QuickBooks or something like that. Like my tax accountant, he's like, please use some automated software. I'm sick of your crap. And it got to the point where, I had so many clients and I was just constantly on the go. I just couldn't keep up. And I was just on the verge of getting the software. COVID kicked in, everything went down the drain.
Yeah.
So it never happened. Then I went, when everything picked up again, I went back to the manual system. But I took a turn where I actually basically didn't take on as many clients as I used to. So as opposed to trying to put in 4 million clients into one day, I've now become selective with who I work for and stuff. So I don't have to send out as many invoices. And being the repetitive clients who, basically the detail doesn't change, it's just the price changes, or it might be the same invoice repeated over and over with a different date. I haven't used the electronic, things. But if you're running a big business like Daniel, for example, it must be burning again. It wouldn't make sense to have an automated system, electronic banking and all the rest of that.
100%.
But if you're individual, I think
you can get away with it.
You can. As long as you've got a good structure there and you've got a workflow happening, you can get away with it. But if you're pushing for the 10 million jobs a day sort of thing, then no, it won't happen.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for quality over quantity, then yeah, you can do it.
And totally agree with you 100%. I mean, just to say, I am on manual mode as well, so Excel spreadsheets and whatever else as well. But the quality is really important, and I think the last probably about a year or two during COVID, I kind of exactly the same thing. I turned around and I go, why am I doing weddings? You know what I mean? That's why I stopped doing everything, because I just did not like it and did not enjoy it. And last couple of years, I've just became really selective with my clients. You know what I mean? Hey, you know, this is a good corporate job. They're paying well. Let's do that. You know what I mean? But then, you know, something else will come along, and you know, I had a inquiry a couple of months ago, actually now, about bodybuilding. You know what I mean? And I hate, you know, any of that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? So I just did not want to sort of do this job. So I just passed it on to some of the other guys. You know what I mean?
I think you tried to pass that one.
I did.
Yeah. You want to do some bodybuilding, mate? I went, no.
But like, yeah, I am getting quite selective with all the clients that I'm sort of working with. You know what I mean? So if it's a reasonably large business that I'm happy to work with, if it's a small business, I'm happy with work with them. But you know, I'm not gonna just do crap, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, if you start becoming selective, you can just basically keep the same client and you make him happy, and they keep on coming back as well. And then just invoicing wise, you just keep the same structure. You know, like with my invoices, I normally would do, like if I invoice you for a job or whatever else, I put, you know, invoice 365 whatever, and Evan or Pixel Life, whatever else, and I can just basically search any invoices that I sent you by searching by file name. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's simple as that. And I mean, look, there is obviously 10 million ways of doing it. You know what I mean? But you know, this works for me. This works for you. You know what I mean? So you know, you can go to obviously companies like MYOBs and, you know, Xero and QuickBooks and whatever else, but like, you know,
it's an additional cost as well. So if you're struggling to make ends meet, dropping on an automated system which basically charges you by the month or whatever it is not going to help you. It's going to make things worse. So
no, that's right.
It's a personal thing, you know. If you're making enough money to justify it, and you have the work there, and that's what you're aiming for, 100% go 100%. For it. If on the other hand you're struggling, you know, and you're producing one video a month or one photo shoot a month,
well, if you're starting off, there's no point of jumping on it. I mean, it can get fancy, right? Don't get me wrong. I mean, people like to say, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and whatever else, but you got to sort of really think about how much money you're spending and how much money you're getting out of this. And there's no point of spending more than what you're actually making, because then what's the point? You know what I mean? But anyway.
Think of the exposure. Actually, this is an interesting segue, because one of the very early episodes that we did of Seeking Focus, we actually discussed contracts and doing and doing invoices and stuff like that. So if you've got any interest in invoices and what to put on invoices and, you know, how to do them and stuff, have a look at the earlier sessions. I probably within the first 5 episodes, I think it was, possibly second or third, somewhere around there. We had a whole episode about invoices and contracts and stuff like that. So it's definitely worth checking out.
That was actually quite a good episode, actually.
It was actually, it's one of the most listened to that we've got. So we're you know, it peaks. It's actually one of those. We should do another one about contracts.
Yeah,
I remember when we were talking about it, and you're looking at me with this glazed look in your eyes, like, please kill me. And I was really
actually funny, because the other day I've actually posted that episode on the Facebook. I think you've seen it as well, because one of the other videographers in Melbourne, they said, I've got a client that they don't want to pay me my invoice, and it was a couple of $1,000 invoice. So it was a point where he goes, what do I do? He had no idea what to do, and I sent him the what's it called, episode that we did, and he actually replied to me. He goes, thanks for saying that, was actually quite helpful. So look, you know, it's a hard one. You know what I mean? When you're starting off a business and you're kind of trying to get your invoices paid, and people don't want to pay it to you, well, you got to do something about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then breaking kneecaps or breaking property,
It's probably not a good idea.
it's not the way to progress. Though you feel like it might make you feel a lot better, it's not the way to go. There are legal ramifications, obviously, but we actually that was part of the other show that we're talking about as well, contracts and stuff, and the way that you can get reimbursed and. That's actually
good.
It was a popular episode because it had some really useful down to earth advice, which actually worked for me on a number of occasions where I had deadbeat clients, and that was the what I did, and it worked every single time. So worth having a listen to if you haven't already listened to it, and if you want any advice about contracts and chasing up money and not having to break people's kneecaps.
Yeah, we've covered a fair bit of information here on this episode, I think, as well. And is there anything else that you want to sort of basically throw in there? Because I mean, we had a number of questions that we sort of prepared earlier, and we probably didn't really cover half of them, but
usually the case.
Yeah, but like in the episode now is obviously over an hour now, and just want to make sure that everyone's sort of, you know, if you got any questions, I mean, just shoot a DM for us, and we'll get back to you on those. And I mean, every situation is different. Yeah. Every person is different. Every client is different. Every different. We're living in a different world. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Did you want to add anything else to this?
DM's one way of catching us. Email is also another, so you can reach me at evan@pixellife.com.au. Marty, your email address is...
I think everyone knows my email address by now.
Just for the people who like to hear it.
Marty, Marty, @melbourneImages.com.au.
So if you've got any questions...
Sexy voice.
Maybe if you don't want the sexy voice, you can still write into us. But yeah, if you have any questions about what we've spoken about tonight, or if you want some additional information about anything that we didn't expand on, or if you have an individual question that we just have never addressed, send it through to us. We're always happy to take things on board, and it's always good to sort of produce a podcast episode that caters to the needs of the listener, as opposed to us just blah 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 for an hour.
That's right. We're always thinking of different episodes to talk about and whatever else, but always good to have good feedback.
Yeah, definitely.
Beautiful. All right, thanks for listening to Seeking Focus with Marty and Evan. And see you on the next one.
Have a great day, evening, morning, whatever you're doing, and stay safe out there, peeps.
Toodaloo.
Bye-bye.